and welcome to episode 155 of the Crate and Crowbar. It's the 30th of August. I'm Tom Francis, and with me here today are...
Alex Wiltshire.
And...
Philippa War.
And...
John Roberts.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm back now.
Back.
Thank you. I've been away for 2 months in a cabin in the woods of Sweden, working on our game Heat Signature with 25 other developers, or thereabouts, about 25 of us in total, to kind of like focus. It's an amazing thing. I don't know how this exists, but there is a thing, it seems, where you can just go and do this for 2 months, like all expenses paid, and the people who organise it don't own your game at the end of it. You still do. And they really get nothing out of it except just like making nice games happen, which is incredible. And I had an amazing time. We got to spend like half our time working and half our time just enjoying like nature. We're right by a lake, right by a mountain, right by a forest. That's the 3 kinds of nature I know of. They were all there. And we saw like... Early on, we were in like a massive rainstorm with incredible lightning, and went out in that like absolutely drenched. And I thought, wow, this is as good as it gets. This is amazing. And then like a few nights later, we're watching a meteor shower on top of a mountain, and like massive just streaks across the sky, like gashing it open, like just spectacular. And then we had on like almost the last night, like maybe 2 nights before the end, we had the Northern Lights, which was extremely unlikely that we would see them because they were like rare for it to happen that far south, rare for it to happen that time of year, and usually there's cloud cover, and just by some miracle there wasn't, and we just saw this amazing display, and it was awesome.
That sounds like a suspiciously linear scripted experience.
I did think like, this looks a bit designed actually. Like, yeah, that big glowing thing in the sky is kind of good, but ours are procedurally generated. Like, they're different every time. Yeah, I was there with a whole bunch of other indie developers, and I wanted to like run through all of them because they are all making cool things. They're all kind of like selected because I guess the organisers of Stugan, which is the name of that thing, wanted to see these games made. And Matthew was there with a game called Caves, which is a side-on kind of exploration and building game where you're a little spaceship inside caves, and you can destroy any part of the caves. They're all completely destructible, and also, unlike most fully destructible games, they're made of triangles rather than squares, so they have this really like crystalline look to it, which is really nice. And you kind of mine through finding like resources that you then can build extractors on, and build new like ammo stations to restock your mining laser type thing, and fight weird worms and stuff, usual cave stuff. And there's also just like really strange people in the caves. You've got some like other people with you there, who are telling you like how to build stuff, but then you just encounter like a giant mantis like cut off in a cave who wants you to find his robot bird friend. And then you go and do that, and it has like a twist at the end of that quest, and it's so much like there's so much more depth to it than I realized. And you can like craft things out of worm eyes. And I played for like an hour, and I got really into it and really wanted to play more. So that is a hot tip for a forthcoming PC game. I think it's going to be great. He's going to do like a Greenlight campaign fairly soon, I think. There was Secret Legend. Andrew was there with that. And that is, if you've seen it, you'll know what I mean when I say the gorgeous fox game with like kind of Zelda inspired, where you're walking around a forest. And for me, it was very much a game about cutting down bushes because you can do that and it's extremely satisfying. And at Stugan, I think we all eventually persuaded him to make it so that when you cut down the bushes, they stay cut, so that when you come back, you can see where you've been and where you haven't. And he was hesitant about that because he thought it was making the world uglier. But I was like, no, damn it, this is my work. This is my what's the line in Hannibal? This is my design. My totem of severed bushes. Karen was there with Astro Antica, which was a... what did you call it? Diplomacy combat game, where you're like the captain of a starship, like the Enterprise, only everyone is animals. So like your best friend is a platypus, I think, and there's a red panda on your crew. And instead of like fighting the enemy ships, you have a conversation with them, and then you have to kind of like figure out things about their culture and negotiate with them. So she showed us a great example where like the enemy race is a race of birds, and you can like flatter them by saying, "Oh, I've heard your people have a beautiful song," and they will sing for you. And then you can talk about how great seed is. That will really get you on their side.
It sounds like a Grand Admiral Thrawn simulator.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is.
Only Chris will appreciate, really. Going to look at their art and then learn how to destroy them.
I didn't see that side of it. The art is incredibly cute. And then Paul and Armel were there with Vignettes, which is a game where you rotate. You have like a sort of really cute, starkly coloured object on screen, like a telephone or a TV or a lampshade, and you rotate it until you're just seeing one side of it, so it becomes like almost like a flat geometric shape. And then when you rotate it further than that, it's become something else that also looks like that shape from that angle. So the lampshade can turn into a telephone and that. And so every item can kind of match to other items. And as you do that, you're kind of, when you just play around with it, it just feels like a weird like toy where you're just randomly making a thing turn into other things by no logic that you understand. But then it's actually got like a secret map to it where you're actually kind of navigating this branching tree of where you can go, and you can find secret items by rotating things in certain ways, and like sometimes it'll change the background and you're going to like a weird kaleidoscope world. It's really cool. Austin and Diana were there with Cat Date, which is a game in which you are a cat and can date cats. And it's really cute and funny, and I think everyone like sees the immediate appeal of it, but also it like goes really deep. Like they're designing it as a game about empathy, and your objective is to like become best friends with all the different cats, and they all have different personality types, and some of them are kind of like pushy and some of them are passive, and you sort of have to figure out what they like and how you can become friends with them, and some of them you have to become rivals with them first, and it's supposed to teach you about how to understand people who are really different to you. And so I was like, oh, so it's a game where like, is everyone just a cat in this world? And Daniel's saying, no, there's humans too. So, okay, so are cats still humans' pets? Yeah. Well, if they want to be, they can also go to like the sentient place where all the cats are sentient and they like run businesses and stuff. Holy shit. It goes quite deep. Andreas was there with Spin Up, which is a mobile game where you you're an acrobat on spinning around poles.
Oh, the bars.
Yeah. Like a trapeze artist, but they're like poles sticking out of a wall, and all you do is just tap when you want to swing to the next one. So it's super, super simple to play, but it's also like the animation is beautiful because you always, however fast you spin and wherever you're going, you always land exactly with your hands on the next bar or your feet on the next bar and swing from there. Ivan was there with a game called House of Flowers, which is set in Yugoslavia during the war, and sounds like it's going to be a really like serious and poignant game about war, but it's also incredibly systemically designed. So everything is like physics driven, and everything is really thoroughly fleshed out. There's like train timetables and real trains that go along it according to that timetable. You can drive cars, and you have to like. It reminded me a bit of what you've said about Jalopy Pip, where every part of the car is like beautifully simulated, and you have to manually put the key in the ignition and turn it around and all that stuff. And of course, because it's like extremely incomplete, it's absolutely hilarious. It's just like, my favourite bug in it is there's a watch item, and when you bring up the watch, it's like you see your wrist in front of you and the watch is on it, and if you drop the watch, you just throw your whole arm away, and the arm with the watch is just lying on the ground. And so it's full of stuff like that. It really reminded me of, obviously this is not the finished game, and maybe the finished game will be like a totally different tone, but right now it reminds me of Boiling Point. The way everything, like it's this serious subject matter, but then everything just goes completely haywire when you explore it. And Ivan's just like crazy genius, and he just went off and made like whole new sets of like shaders. He made a jam game. He made almost everything except his game while he was there. And then he nearly lost his entire game on the last day when his Git repository failed. But he got it back. Mira and Tanya were there with TikTok, which is a asymmetric co-op non-networked tablet game, if you can follow that. So you both play on iPads, and you're both playing a game that looks almost the same, but you're playing slightly different versions of it. So one of you will have sort of like snippets of text that don't seem to make sense, but when you read them out to the other person, they'll realise, oh, that's the start of the sentence I have here. And once you piece it together, you solve puzzles that way and realise, like, oh, this means the answer to your like code puzzle over here must be this word. And it's really cool to like, it gets you kind of engaging with the text because you have to understand it to progress, and you end up basically kind of reading stories to each other, so it's almost like collaborative storytelling. And Niklas was there with, okay, it's now called, let's see if I can get this right, Iono and the Celestial Elephants. I'm allowed to be hazy on this name because he only just settled on it right at the end of Stugan. And it's a really cute game where you are an elephant walking around a isometric world, pushing crates around and picking up things with your trunks. Sorry. With your trunk. Sucking up water and then delivering it somewhere and firing peanuts at people. But also, like many of the games here, it has like surprising amount of hidden depth in that there are whole... Like, there's a multi-thousand-year backstory of how elephants come around every 1,000 years, and there's a society of zombies and a society of robots and a society of humans, and they've been in long political wars. And while you're solving all these cute puzzles, that's happening.
Good lord.
Yep.
It does feel like elephants probably haven't been exploited fully as a...
Yeah, there's something about, like, when you see an elephant in an isometric square, there's something that immediately makes sense about that. Like, they're quite compact creatures, and they fit really nicely into this cute art style. Laura and Michael are making Thin Air, which is a sort of top-down survival game where you play a woman who has decided to go into this jungle that's on top of a cliff where the oxygen is extremely thin, and in order to like experience hallucinogenic like trance thing by taking this plant called white leaf, and so you're like low on oxygen all the time, and then you try and find this psychedelic leaf and you take it, and then you have a hallucination, and depending on how well you're doing it, like the survival layer of it, you will have either a good or a bad hallucination, and they will be like horrific weird creatures, and you'll have to kind of figure out how to kind of make your peace with them. So it's all about like delirious kind of transcendent experiences and navigating those in a gamey way. It looks absolutely gorgeous. They're very early on. They've just started, so like they're in terms of like the playable build, it's very simple right now. But you can see like when you take the plant, like everything in the world transforms from its normal self to kind of an exaggerated or dark or fantastical version of it, and it looks super cool. Dorian, Robbie, and Mark were there with Kingdom in the Sky, which is a strategy game where you start with just a few hexes of tile space and like a town hall or whatever. And then instead of exploring from there, you are given a choice of other chunks of land that you can bolt onto that, and you can rotate them however you like. And so sometimes they tessellate really satisfyingly, and sometimes they don't. And they also have resources on them and obstacles like mountains and stuff. And it's all about figuring out like, okay, if I rotate this water tile so that the water is right next to this, it will water this fruit tree, and then that'll give me enough fruit that I can then fuel my science lab, and then I can research advanced goop, which is a real resource in this game. And I played that, and it's really addictive. And then Julie, Nicholas, and Xavier were there with Castle Hustle, which is a game that you play on a console called Air Console, which is not a console at all, but just a website that you go to, and you go there to a URL, and then all of you want to play, go to a URL on your phone, and your phones become controllers for it, and it's networked into the game that you're all seeing on the screen. And you are trying to move your little guys around a castle in order to pick up like rocks and load them into catapults and fire them at enemies that are coming in. But you have to choose 4 actions to do. So I'm going to move 3 spaces left, then pick up, and then pass. And you all have to queue up your actions like within 30 seconds or something, and then you're committed. And then you get to watch it play out. And inevitably what's happened is that one of you's decided to pick up the rock that someone else was going to go for. And so now when they go there, they can't pick it up. And instead they bump into somebody else. And if you throw the rock at them, then it hits them in the head and knocks them out for a turn and also breaks the rock. And it's like immediately chaotic and really cool. And that is it. Oh, I was there with Heat Signature, which is a game me and John have been making about spaceships.
I like how they had at least 3 people who were focusing in on empathy and diplomacy. Like maybe that's like one of the keys to having 25 people trapped in a cabin. Making sure.
We needed their skills often.
Yeah, and there was that one person who was focusing on making their peace with hallucinogenic monsters. So maybe that was, if it all went really badly.
Definitely when the Northern Lights came out, they were a big help in like navigating that experience with a terrible deity.
Did you find anything creepy out in the woods?
Yes, we found the bone tree.
The bone tree.
It was like throughout Stugan, we were repeatedly doing everything you shouldn't do in a horror movie. So some people went into what was called what we'd end up calling the witch's cabin, just in the middle of nowhere, very spooky. And they actually found dolls inside. Creepy dolls were inside the witch's cabin. And then on a walk, some of us went, this will sound stupid, but we went off the beaten path to investigate a spooky-looking, truncated white tree that was standing away from all the others. And as we approached it, we realised, some like strange rocks have been carefully placed around this. And then someone said, like, let's touch it. Yeah, let's touch the weirdly smooth, white, strange tree in the clearing, whilst everyone else has already gone off and forgotten that we're here. And then someone else noticed that there's like a stick kind of jammed into the top of it. Like, let's take that out. It probably won't unleash an ancient evil. And this is the point where I realised there was a twig directly in front of my face, just hovering. And I looked up and realised, that's a spider's thread that's keeping that there. So I'm sure there's not some giant creature above us. And then also with the weird rocks at the base of it, I was looking at them thinking, I think these are salt. They seem like salt. And I joked that, like, if we were in some movie that was some, like, brash detective or something, they'd pick it up and lick it to check it's salt. And then Robbie came over and picked it up and licked it. Like, oh, come on. We're all so dead.
Did he break the circle of salt?
Yes, I think in doing that, he broke the circle of salt.
Are you going to die?
Are we all going to die?
How many of the people that you just read out the names of are dead?
I mean, I'm the only survivor so far, but some of them might come back yet.
It sounds like a great survival horror. How was it as a game development incubator?
It was really, really good because I was able to...
drink a lot of booze?
Yes, that was crucial to my success. No, every time you get stuck on something when you're working on your own, it's very easy to fixate on some small part of it and obsess over it, particularly when it's like a bug you can't fix or a feature that just seems so simple but you can't get it working. And when you're around other people, we had a meeting every day to like say what we're working on and what we're going to work on tomorrow. What we worked on yesterday and what we're going to work on today. And sometimes at that meeting you realise, like, God, why am I saying I'm working on this tiny little thing that wasn't even that important in the first place and I've already spent a day on it? And other times at that meeting someone says, oh, hey, I can probably help you with that. And they'll come over and just talk you through it. And Austin did that with a problem that I've been having that was driving me crazy. And then we just fixed it in like 10 minutes because it's just, when you have someone else there, it's really obvious. So yeah, I think it was great for Heatsink Show. It made a huge progress in like how actually fun that game is, and it's making me laugh way more when I play it, and that's really, really exciting.
Did everyone like seem to get a bunch further with what they were doing, or
except Ivan? Yes. Ivan, I feel, made loads of progress in all kinds of things, but I don't think he made a lot of progress in his main game. But that's kind of like, I suspect they probably knew that when they chose him, because he's just like a mad genius. We also we had a tournament of Time Barons, which is a board game, and he just did an incredible job of like setting up a webcam setup for that and making it this beautifully executed production where we live streamed everything, and loads of other people helped with that as well. But he will just like pick something and make it brilliant.
How many of these in total would you say were 2D platformers with feelings?
I think none. I can't think of any that are like side-scrolling platformers. Like, Matthew's game is side-scrolling, but it's not a platformer, and it's not about feelings, as far as I could tell. At least, maybe I hugely missed the point of Matthew's game. But I think it was about destroying rocks and finding cool shit. And there was certainly a lot of games about feelings, like, that would be fair to say. But yeah, they're all really, really cool. What's been happening in this country? Or the rest of the world?
Well, I made some cherry vodka, and I thought you were away for 6 weeks because that was how long it needed to steep. And then you were gone for an extra 2 weeks, so I drank it.
Oh, thanks, Pip. That means a lot in theory.
It was ready for when you came back.
There's no way to just like remove the cherries and just keep the vodka.
I ate the cherries. There's some blackberry whiskey though.
Oh wow!
So we can try that next time.
Yeah. Do I have to go away for 6 weeks before?
No, I set that going just after the cherry vodka, so we should be golden.
I am actually away next week. I don't suppose that's
I think it depends what kind of week I have.
What have you guys been playing?
Well, you guys, I know you guys have all been playing Deus Ex, but I just haven't. It's one of those games that I just don't have any interest in, but it's always interesting hearing other people talk about it. But I've
Well,
played...
you're in luck. That's what I'm going to talk about.
But like instead, I was playing a bit of Destiny, which obviously I understand. I can't really talk
Why
about.
did you? I mean, without going into, why did you go back into it?
Because I want to get the triumphs for the second year before it like starts with the rise of like. Shut up. Also, because I never finished the last raid that they added, and I really, really would like to do that without like, because I've managed to say spoiler free because I stopped going on the subreddit and stuff. Anyway, so I've actually like been playing the first bit of Abduction, which is the new Myst-esque game from the Myst people, I think. But I never played any of the originals, so Myst or Riven was the other one, right?
Yeah.
But like it was one of those ones that seems to be so polarizing, and like people would either be like, oh, it's the most smug annoying thing and I hate it, and this is Myst, and then like some people just being like, oh, it's, you know, a bastion of PC gaming and, you know, all of this stuff. And I sort of found myself oscillating between the two. And I think it's because it's the sort of game that dangles in front of you that there are solutions that it's not helping you with. And while you're not finding them, it feels kind of gleeful and you feel sort of... not victimized by it, because that feels really like totally the wrong sentiment, but it feels like the game is being smug towards you. Even if, you know, that wasn't the intention or anything like that. It's the way that it withholds information, I think, in a very particular way. And then as soon as you do start finding your way in or see the thing that you missed, or because for me it was just that I hadn't seen that you could go up an extra layer of a particular area, like that.
How much is it like
as simple
sort of
as that.
how much you presented with a screen and then you move like Myst style, or how, is it actually freeform viewing?
It was an environment, like a really pretty environment that you were just walking around. Like there's a sort of setting the scene bit that's almost like your description of Stugan, in that like you're by a lake and there's some old fire pits and someone's talking to you and it's all a bit mysterious, and then there's, you know, like bright lights over the water and things like that. And then it sort of deposits you in this weird sort of faux western sort of slightly deserty thing with a weird picket house and some mining sort of area looking thing, and you just sort of start poking around and you can activate little points which start talking to you, and like the voiceovers are really stylized, and it's one of those things that I think will either you'll get on with it or it'll really wind you up. And when I was talking to Adam at RPS about it, he said it sounds like Holly Hunter's stuck inside a watering can. And, like, that is what one of the voiceovers does sound like. It's fairly accurate, I would say. And so, like, it was one of those things where I took forever with it because I just couldn't see what it wanted me to do. Like, I honestly just didn't see this extra, like... way that you could go. So I just and I think it was that thing that I had with Dark Souls, which was that I knew that it was difficult, so I didn't interpret what I was doing as the wrong thing. I just assumed that it was that this was just the game. Like I'd heard that these games were opaque and impenetrable and stuff, and I was just like, okay, well maybe this is just it, you know. It isn't that I've not found a ramp, it's that this is the game, and you know, that's... Yeah, so... But then I found a way to get a bit further and then a bit further, and then, you know, it sort of seemed quite straightforward after that. And I started sort of wondering about that thing of the game having that feeling of smugness right up until you sort of find your way in, and then you feel so pleased with yourself that you feel like, oh no, this game's great because I feel good about myself now. And it's kind of... I don't think that any of that stuff is really... the game itself being good or bad. It's that it provokes, or those types of games provoke a very specific reaction while you're playing them, or I think that they can do. And so I'm sort of wondering about that at the moment. But I've obviously got absolutely no further, and I just decided to go for a walk this weekend. So
the danger of too smug puzzles is that the way out of them is to go and look at the walkthrough. But I suppose if you've heard that it's a hard game, you're going to that with that kind of challenge in mind. Have you been tempted to skip past the smug bits yet?
Not really. It's more that I was playing the game and then I haven't felt any particular compulsion to go back. Like, it was sort of interesting while I was there and while I was making progress, but then, you know, it got to, I don't know, midnight, and I was like, okay, well, bed now. And then there's nothing that has really been a hook that has made me go, oh, I wonder about that thing, or, you know.
What are the puzzles like? Are they kind of are they Myst style kind of, here's an abstract thing in a place, or are they quite sort of grounded?
So there's one that I've found that I don't know whether is intrinsic or optional, which seems to be more in the vein of, like, when I was a kid I used to get these like Mensa sponsored puzzle books and stuff like that, and some of them would be really convoluted and require you to think in like base 8 and like work out what then a sort of system of pegboards would look like off the back of that. Do you know what I mean? It was, some of them would be like that and some of them would be like, you know, logic based, you know, pretty straightforward. And so there's one that is far more in that vein of that sort of complicated, oh god, you know, I'm going to need a piece of paper kind of side of things. But the bits where I was making progress were just more kind of in the way of like levers and then pushing and pulling a thing around, like on some like rail tracks. And so I don't know, none of it has been particularly compelling, and I don't know whether that's just because I wasn't around in the right part of PC gaming culture history for that to be meaningful to me, or, you know, I'm wondering whether there's something to be said for the nostalgia of people who did play those earlier games or miss that particular era of PC gaming.
Missed.
But yeah, like I was talking to Chris about this, and he was saying that he thinks that The Witness is a sort of a different take on that I obviously got on far better with.
Yeah, I think John Blow said it was directly inspired by Myst.
And so, but I think that I prefer the way that gives you puzzle information, kind of like Stephen's Sausage Roll. It kind of teaches you things and gives you enough tools to do things, but then if you can't really get on with one puzzle there, you can leave and try something else. You can,
and
whereas
that
this,
gives you
it felt like
you can take on to another thing.
It has so far felt kind of linear, and I genuinely don't know if that's just because I haven't got far enough, and, you know, I've started to sort of be able to access unexpected areas and the geometry is behaving a bit weirdly, and that's interesting, but like I say, it's just not interesting enough to have brought me back for a second session of play, really. And I was getting really annoyed when I wasn't getting further, because I was just like, is this the game? Is this the game? Oh no, there's a ramp. Okay.
Those kind of puzzles where you just missed one key thing can drive you to insanity. I think the last Myst type game I played with my dad, and we both got stuck one evening, and I went to bed, and it was, you needed to find a combination for a padlock, and the padlock was a 3-digit tumbler, and I woke up next morning to find out that my dad had gone mad and stayed up till 2 a.m. trying every single combination on the padlock, and it didn't even work. The game logic needed you to go and find
the item to do it.
Yeah,
that's awful.
Oh, that's gross.
I remember hearing that in Monkey Island 2, there's a puzzle where you have to save up to charter a boat, and it costs 1,000 gold pieces, and I can't remember who this was, but someone was saying that there's a way to get 1,000 gold pieces, but also there's a dude at the docks who, if you polish his peg leg, will give you 1 gold piece. And so someone was like, okay, jump.
There you go.
I know what my task is.
I just got to do it.
Just going to keep at it. And they did it.
Oh, wow. And did it let him...
I assume so. I feel like
Well, the
the
thing
story would have ended in rage if it hadn't.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, like, because I remember the Simon the Sorcerer games, and I got so stuck with one particular bit of a puzzle, and I actually capitulated and phoned them. Couldn't help me. And they couldn't help me. I was just like, are you kidding me? I got permission from my mum to phone you.
This is costing me 35p a minute.
Like, are you actually kidding me? And they were just like, oh, well, you know, it's not in our... I think they had like a book of solutions or something, I don't know. But yeah, they couldn't help me. They were just like, no.
You see, Double Fine actually did a live helpline for Broken Age, like during a launch event.
That's really
so
cool.
like for 6 hours or something, you could actually call, and Tim Schafer would tell you the answer to your problem.
That's so good. I've just got back from holiday, and my daughter Hester, who is 8, has been playing Secret Monkey Island on her iPod, and she really, really loved it. Just sort of just playing through on her own and coming up to me now and then to say, "How do I get the pirate to do this?" And she did the insult competition, not the insult sword fighting thing, and we were kind of working that out together. And like, it's just really nice watching her doing it. She played a bit of the Tentacle when it came out, that reissue, which she really enjoyed. But it's really interesting watching her do that when it's with me. Me getting impatient and kind of like, no, you've got to go there next, and her going off on her own with a to play it on her own in her own time, is really good. That to see her applying her own kind of ambition and kind of tenaciousness to it, it's really
that kind of weird surrealist child logic would come in incredibly helpful for some of the LucasArts puzzles.
yeah, definitely. And she got pretty far, and I think that she'll. I don't know. Like, it's holiday. You know that thing on holiday when, for some reason, all your interests of turn on their head, and things that you'd never do at home, you kind of get obsessed with. I think that she hasn't played it since we got home, but.
Yeah. Oh, that's a shame. Did she finish it then?
No, we didn't. I don't think she finished the first part, but I think it's pretty good for an 8-year-old.
She could look up a Let's Play.
She asked me to look up walkthroughs over and over again, but I thought, well, if I was her age, back then I would have killed for that.
Yeah. Well, that's why I ended up like buying a bunch of me and my brother clubbed together and bought like the Ocarina of Time, not walkthrough, because you play the game and you work all that stuff out, but it was more for like the gold sculptures and things like that. That was pretty great. And like for Majora's Mask, the order in which you do things to get particular masks, that was really cool. You get them for free now.
So a bunch of us have been playing Deus Ex, I think, to varying degrees. This was my thing I was most looking forward to about getting home, is like getting to get stuck into this, and then somehow all of yesterday I totally failed to do that due to Twitter and various other social things. And then today I finally played it, and so I'm like super excited about this thing, and like really, blocking out the lights and turning up the volume and getting really into it, and
wine and candles.
Adam Jensen, he loved Adam Jensen.
Yeah, what is it about? Or JC, maybe.
JC.
Deus Ex, I feel like I've written about 14 articles about what it is about Deus Ex.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I'm happy to go into it.
My own ambivalence about Deus Ex probably means that
So you've always been meh on it.
All of the ideas sound interesting, but then I have picked up, a copy of, I don't know, Human Revolution or something, and just started playing it and got bored. It's not my kind of game in terms of the mechanical side of things. And then in terms of the plot lines and stuff, I sort of tended to find, I think, that either there were TV shows or books that I would prefer to get that from. And that's not to be shitty about it. That is just to,
I'm not sure I know what's happening in any of the Deus Exes at any time. They're so twisty-turny.
So that's actually what I was going to say about this one, is like I was really excited and sat down and started playing it, and then I didn't watch the 12-minute movie of what happened in the last one because I remember the last one pretty well.
I did. I don't know. I'm none the wiser.
And then it started, and there's like I won't spoil anything obviously, but you are being briefed on what your mission is, and first there's like a news report, and then you're being briefed on what your mission is, and I just couldn't concentrate on it. It was so boring. I just couldn't, like, by the time I got to the next sentence, I'd forgotten the last one, and I'm just like, who are you? What am I doing? Does this relate to the plane thing? Who are we fighting again? Where are we? And by the time mission started, I had forgotten already what country it's in. I didn't know what we're trying to do. I didn't know. Like, it was like trying to remember a dream where it just slips out of your memory the moment you focus on it.
Someone else's dream.
Yeah. A dream of a boring Interpol mission. So, like, it was really strange because I was so, like, wanting to be engaged with it, and they just couldn't engage with it. It's really dry opening. It's all tell, don't show. There's like all the things they're talking about, you don't see what they're talking about.
Terrible exposition as well. Sort of,
and also the voice acting is pretty dodgy in that intro, so it feels kind of fake. And then the actual game itself, I haven't got very far with it, but I'm enjoying like the basic sneaking around and stuff. I like the new HUD and a bunch of things, but they've changed the only perfect cover system in gaming. The Deus Ex Human Revolution and Rainbow Six, which have the same cover system, the only two that I think is just always works and never fucks me over, and they've changed it. It used to be that it was up to you whether you wanted the cover button to be a hold or toggle, and I had it on hold, which means like I would hold right mouse to like hug a wall, and then as soon as I let go, I'm off it again. And that's the number one problem with cover systems, is like once you want to get off it, I need to be off it immediately. There can't be any delay or confusion about whether I'm still on it. And now they've changed it to a toggle thing, and you seemingly can't change that. It's not in the gameplay options, not on the control options. I can't find like a separate control binding for it or anything, so I'm just forever being glued to things, and I'm like, oh no, I want to get away from that thing. Fuck. I've got to like press, like technically I can just press right mouse again, but I've been holding right mouse usually instinctively to kind of stick myself to it, and so then when I release it, it doesn't pull me away. The last thing I want to do is press it again, because for me that's the take cover button, and so then I'm like using the WSD keys to like pull myself away, and it feels like there's glue. I'm like trying to drag away from it.
It's a very gamepaddy sort of thing, that glueness.
Maybe I should try it on the gamepad.
Stick, you kind of there's more natural sort of easing away sort of feel to it.
I was going to say that feels like a problem that they had with gamepad controls that they then tried to fix. Like in a lot of games, like particularly Gears of War, you have a problem with A doing everything, like sprinting and going into cover and stuff. And I wonder if they had a lot of feedback saying that just put cover on a dedicated button, but it seems to have backfired a little.
No, I haven't had that many. It felt more natural. I'm using the new controls, which I took a little bit to get used to. There's some weird,
what do you mean?
Slightly weirdy controls where, like for instance, I'm using a gamepad and holding down the right stick opens your inventory, and then there's a kind of a cover system where you point to where you want to go, and you can you run over there and things like that.
Okay,
and that's,
so what's so more like, I don't know, XCOM or something?
Yeah, it feels really XCOM-y. Really XCOM-y.
Yeah, that's the same on mouse and keyboard, and I quite like the kind of, when you're peeking out a cover, you see a line in front of you showing where you go. Yeah. It's quite sophisticated, like it'll curve around things and sort of align with the scenery. And I'll sometimes use that because it shows how far you're going to go. I think you could always dash between cover, but now even if you're not aiming at cover, it'll show, okay, you're just going to dash over there as far as you can. And so sometimes like that'll get you nearly to cover, so I'll do that and then just move the last little bit by myself. That's quite cool. I've also been I took the tranquilizer rifle, and I'm in a weird situation now where I wanted to see if it was better than the previous one because it was kind of garbage in Human Revolution. Like it wouldn't go where the crosshair said it would, and if it didn't hit exactly in the head, it was useless. This time it seems much easier to use. But also, it's just got loads and loads of ammo, and it knocks people out, and it's perfectly accurate, and you can use it at any range. And your melee stuff, I know your charge can't be drained below a certain level, but you have a lot of charge, and each time you use it, it drains it a lot. Whereas other orgs, like, only drain a tiny amount when you turn them on, and then the things like your see-through walls vision will drain while it's using, but then all of that recharges when you stop using it, and the actual activation cost is quite small. But punching people has a big activation cost, and so basically punching people is expensive now, and shooting people with a tranq rifle is really cheap. So even when I'm like point blank, I will like stand up and shoot them with a tranq rifle, and you have to zoom in and use the full scope on the tranq rifle. So in this weird situation where I'm like standing behind people and zooming in on their heads and then shooting a dart like 1 foot into the back of their head because it's cheaper than punching them.
I just go around with like a completely discharged thing because it's enough to make a punch, and you can then recharges after a short time. And,
I haven't tried that actually. That's what I did in Human Revolution, and it in that you started I think with just 2 energy cells, and one of them wasn't replenishable, and the other one was. So it's pretty natural just to stick with the one that was.
Yeah. But
here you've got this really big energy bar, and you have to lose a lot of it before it gets down to the reliably recharging.
It goes down so quickly when you use it. So quickly.
It's incredibly complicated, the energy bar. There is 3 different levels at any given time. One's your maximum capacity, one is your current maximum capacity, one is your current level, and then actually there's 4, because then there's the minimum maximum capacity, which is the smallest amount your maximum capacity can go down to before it can't be reduced any further. And every org has 2 different costs. One is the activation cost and one is the sustain cost. And one of those is rechargeable and one of them is not rechargeable.
Why aren't you playing it? It's really fun.
This sounds like one of the sorts of descriptions that you give to people when you're hamming up how complicated a tax return is. I think that...
It's good interior design, though.
For me, it's one of those games that I would probably happily half watch someone else play from sitting next to them on the sofa. But I have no interest in pouring 50 hours of my life into it.
I had the same experience as I did with Human Revolution, where it took probably a couple of hours before it kind of lodged, and then I'm lodged now, and I'm kind of I'm in that free-flowing kind of, might do a side quest, I might just go and nick stuff out of somebody's apartment, I might go and do that's where the sweet spot is, I think.
I think I haven't had that itch for a game of that type for a very long time, actually, possibly not since Skyrim. Just, in terms of a sprawling world where I can just nip off and do side quests, or go off for an explore or do my own thing, or I don't know whether I burnt out on those or whether it was just a kind of time management thing or just different tastes.
Change. Sorry.
No, go.
I saw a really interesting comment. I think they were coming to the series fresh, and so a lot of their exposure had been the marketing and the trailers and so on. And they said that they didn't like it because they didn't feel like an augmented badass, like a super soldier kind of really slick operator kind of thing. And you don't. And I think that's by design. Every kind of Deus Ex protagonist has been incredibly weird. They're not awesome super soldiers. They're really weird individuals who sneak through an entire installation with a vending machine so they can put it down and use it to hack behind cover. And when they're not off saving the world, they're thieving from everyone's homes and eating all their stuff and drinking all their booze. And yeah.
You were describing earlier how weird it is in past Deus Ex games that they send in this fully augmented agent who then...
it was mostly the very first mission in Human Revolution, where Sarif, his manufacturing facility, is held hostage by terrorists, and so they send in the badass super secret agent who, in I guess about 50% of games, completely avoids everyone, sneaks through the entire facility, and just talks to the guy in charge, and possibly even then just lets him go away. Really, really weird problem solving.
Non-interventionist agent.
Is it possible to shoot a bunch of people in that? Because I'm sure that that's what I've played, and there was a bloodbath.
Yeah,
it's very...
I'm not a stealth person.
They are always trying to stress that, you can do it either stealthily or you can do the action approach. And they made a big deal in Human Revolution. It was this is what we wanted to change from Deus Ex. We wanted the action approach to be more viable and more fun. And then their shtick with Mankind Divided is, okay, this time we want the action approach to be a lot more fun and a lot more viable. Because it's obvious, the people who really like Deus Ex, I think almost nobody likes it as an action game. They're always, if they love it, it's because they like the stealth approach. And there are those people who play it as an action game, but I think those people probably aren't the mega fans of the series because it's never been a great action game.
I think maybe that's part of why I bounced off it, because even if I'm trying to stealth, it ends up as an action game. And so if that part isn't the strong suit of the game, then I think that mechanically it's just not for me, because it won't support the playstyle that I end up with.
It's like Metal Gear 5, where where that did both really nicely. Actually, I thought, and kind of
it was really good at blurring the line a little bit, and that you could be stealthy, and then if someone did see you, it went into slow motion, and you had a chance to shoot them in the head. And if you did that, that was like, you kind of, if you're a stealth purist, you know you didn't successfully like ghost it, but at the same time, it does contain the problem, and they didn't shout for anyone else, and now that person's down, and so you feel like you can carry on with the stealth.
And even if it does escalate, like there is fun game in getting away and putting things back on track.
Yeah, and
which
also
never really exists in running, like getting away in Deus Ex has always been a bit of a.
I'm sure there are recovery mechanics and searching periods and cooldowns and so on, but I've never experienced them, because as soon as someone sees me, it feels like I failed on something.
Yeah, I'm doing quick save.
My new, my current like standard for play is if anyone's angry, I restart. Because I've had situations where like I shot a guy from miles away and he didn't see me and no one saw me, but they saw him die and now they're angry, and so I'm like, okay, now I've got to restart. That's no good.
Oh wow!
But my favourite thing at the moment, and I suspect that John has been appreciating this as well, but some nice city design. I mean, in terms of game city design, I'm not so sure. Like, they feel very much like each of the bits of Prague that you visit feel a little bit like corridors, really. But there are some beautiful city features. Oh, there are some beautiful like sort of sculptures hanging in the air above you, all kind of faceted with neon lights on them, and there are these amazing just things you come across, and concrete walls against kind of old buildings.
I think
it's gorgeous.
It is. I think last week Tom Senior pointed out in particular one area of like the starting hub, which is a rock suspended between different buildings and so on. And he thought that was a little bit too far, but I just spent 5 minutes looking at it. It's like a great art installation to like discussing how everyone pulls together in the city to lift great weights. Yeah. There's a little plaque nearby, and it was great.
Yeah.
I think when he said that, I was thinking about pointing out that in Bath city centre, there's like 3 rows of bicycles suspended from the bit in between a shopping precinct.
Is that where they had the umbrellas beforehand?
I think it's like symbolic of the Tour de France, but I mean, I think maybe
let's put a bicycle in the air.
But yeah, they're sort of dangling in the air.
So saying Prague is better.
Well, I'm just saying it's, they went with a giant rock and bicycles,
There's actually like a really amazing sort of feature like that in Hengsha in Human Revolution, which I didn't notice on my first 3 playthroughs or something. I was only on playthrough number 4. I'm like, that is not a city block. That's all washing machines. Just stacked washing machines up in the shape of a building, up to the level of the skyscraper. What the fuck?
They're going to put them somewhere. Yeah, it feels. It's really sensitive to places as well. Like, it feels for a European city in the way that Detroit felt like an American city, and Hengsha felt like a Chinese city. In video gamey terms, but there's a Europeanness to it. There's a sort of that feels really kind of true, despite the future setting and kind of flights of imagination and sci-fi and stuff.
Yeah, it's great. They've done a really good job with layering. So you have the basic European brickwork and stuff, and then depending on where you are, you can see the ultra modern stuff, and then layers of things in between where things used to be, and then so a lot of the basements you go down and you find odd things down there about what this shop or whatever used to be, and you come back up, and it's just a fantastic way to give unspoken history to an area, make it feel like a real place.
Yeah, you don't see that very much. I remember Half-Life 2 made a big deal of that wanting always this kind of old building plus super sci-fi thing encroaching on it, and they did a really good job of that tension. But you don't often get that sense of many layers. Yeah. I don't know if this is the same in everywhere, but any house I've lived in, if you scratch the wall, you will find 4 different layers of paint. You can see when it had green wallpaper, and you can see when it was painted blue, and when it was painted red. And that sense of multiple generations of history is quite rare.
I've always been interested in it with regards to MMOs, because over time they do accumulate this history, but they don't seem to retain it in the same way that you get, like, architecturally, because they can just build that bit of the game slightly differently, so it's not...
So there aren't many examples where they have tried to sort of, here's the city as it was.
I think there are bits, like I think in Guild Wars 2 there's like the ruined bit of a thing that has now changed, but it's not like it used... It's not quite in that same way of how street names build up over time, or how, like, a friend of mine had a room in her house that they always called the Red Room, and it was white, but it was because when they moved in it was like crimson, and they repainted it magnolia the first opportunity, but they've been referring to it as the Red Room for so long. Everyone kind of knows what they mean, and so it's just one of those things where I guess that's a tiny version of this stuff that builds up over time, and I sort of haven't really encountered it much in video games, and there are places where you'd think that you would, but like I think I'd really like to do almost like a walking tour of Azeroth or something, where someone like takes me around and goes, and here is this is where, and that's why this is ruined, or that's why this is over here, and I don't even know whether you can. I don't know whether they tidy that stuff up as they go or not.
I think it was it Cataclysm where they nuked a lot of areas and rebuilt them. If you go back there now, can you see traces of what was there before?
I honestly don't know. I was kind of curious as to whether that's even possible, I guess. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that Mankind Divided is totally successful in it, because like the city streets are all weird, or the widths are a bit weird, and the cobbles are too deep, and like the
4 out of 10 cobbles too deep,
because you're walking essentially down corridors. Like they haven't got the no, I don't like this city. Its cobbles are too deep. But like it can't give you a breadth like where in a proper city you'd have a side road that would lead somewhere, and they've tried to give a Warren feel to it, but that's within really kind of strong bounds.
But you've still
and there are lots of identikit things.
Hub portion like writ large throughout the whole
thing. Totally. And there are lots of identikit things where you go into a shop and there's like a pretty much standard template where there's a door on the left hand side behind the thing, and then you go down there and then there's an exact shaped kind of staircase that leads into a basement, and it's like that a lot. And Adam Jensen's kind of city kind of his flat complex, I've been into couple of different versions, but then I suppose you'd have the same design in multiple places in a real city.
I mean, to be fair, isn't Tom's house like a modular like reproduction
we're in Marsh's house. Or your house, at the same time.
Just with some key differences. I think your staircase is slightly wider, maybe, or
also their cabins at Stugan pretty similar to each other.
Oh man,
it's cool though. The abilities I'm not all that excited about. You get so many practice points towards just after the section
I'm in the start where they give you a whole bunch of stuff already. Like the idea is Jensen's already augmented and they want to show off like 4 or 5 different orgs, and it's really weirding me out to have stuff I didn't choose. And it's also,
you didn't ask for this.
Yeah,
I didn't ask for my magic, guys. All my magic needs.
Straight.
Very good.
My one joke.
So lots of games do this, and I think I know why they do it, which is like give you a preview of these things and make sure you're aware.
And it also makes sense because like he's the same guy that ended the last game.
Yeah, it makes story sense, although not quite, because I didn't have those orgs or I had different ones.
But it should have had an import function if that was the case.
The thing is, they give you like 4 different ones that require key presses to activate, and on mouse and keyboard they're like the F keys, and having 4 F keys to use in like the tutorial section of a game is really weird, and I just find MOBAs. I'm not using them. I do hate
very loosely, there are new augmentations. So most people who played Human Revolution will be familiar with your starting set because they're broadly similar, but a story point you get access to a new set, and they're interesting. A lot of them, or about half of them, I think, are kind of boring. They're mostly around either stunning someone or killing them. in a variety of ways, and there's only a couple that really play into, that interact interestingly with the other design systems. Like, I think they've shown off it's kind of propelled motion. It's like a blink from Dishonored, and that does tie in really nicely with stealth system, and you can use it in combat to dodge around and just manoeuvring around the city and so on. But then you get like a built-in PEPS gun, which is like a big shock stun thing from the previous game, but it's now integrated into your arm, and that doesn't have any interesting applications beyond.
It's kind of like a stun gun.
Yeah, which you find in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's surprising how, and like, without spoiling anything, like, there's an investment you need to make to use those augments as well. So, like, I'm not sure why you'd buy them, but hey, should we talk about something else? Okay.
Now let's talk about the bank in Mankind Divided.
Yeah.
Which I suppose nobody's been there. Anyway, it's beautiful. Tom said it was beautiful last week, and it is.
Is it the really tall thing?
It is. It looks like a huge tombstone right in the middle of the city, and
with trees,
with
kind of
stone treries growing up into cubist
really cool
sculptures and stuff. And it's got this amazing kinetic sculpture inside, which is like almost like pixels or voxels being animated in this wave-like motion.
They're kind of rotating, but in a kind of sort of segmented way, so they looks like they're doing.
Yeah, and I think Chris asked me a few podcasts ago, like, why games developers like hiring people with architecture backgrounds, and this place is why. Is because you get stunning buildings and architecture and things that play spaces that aren't just boxes with brick textures on them anymore. They can be massively interesting and tell stories about the company that owns them and stuff like that, just by looking at a wall.
Also, like, places have functions, so there are public places and kind of private places that make sense in that building. You got the kind of you got the offices where people who business important businesses with the who work with the bank get to go in, and you get places where the vaults are, and you get it all makes sense, which is really useful for a game like that, where a lot of it is because it's about information gathering about where you're going and how you're going to get there, and because it has a logic to it, an architectural logic to it. Yeah, that's cool.
I think I saw a tweet which had a few pictures of the environment and said, "You can tell this game has been art directed." I wasn't entirely certain if that was a positive or negative thing. Like, it can
be. This was a tweet from former Crate and Crowbar guest Jack DeKeat.
And it can be a little over-designed in some areas, but it just makes the space such a joy to move around, and there's always something interesting to be looking at, something you've never seen before, and that's mostly why I play games.
I think it was positive. I think it's just like, look at this. Like, if you're obsessed with like realism in games or something, maybe you'd take issue with it, but mostly it's just like, wow, this is a beautiful thing. Art direction's good.
Yeah, remember that for your next game, yeah?
Thanks, Alex.
That's so nice. I do really want to go and look at these things, because I do want to sort of see them, but I think this is, again, like, maybe I'll just sit there while Chris is playing and like peer over his shoulder and just be like, go over there, take a closer look at that one.
I can't, I'll get shot.
Such a good Chris impression. I can't, I'll get shot.
I think as soon as you clear the linear opening section, you can go pretty much anywhere in the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can just go for a walk.
Go for a walk.
I think I would quite like to have a little look around.
Go for an augmented hyper walk.
Don't shoot the police.
But it's just because, like, the architecture stuff is genuinely interesting, but I don't know, like, because I'd quite like to not exactly assess it from that point of view, because that implies that I'm right and have the right opinion or whatever, but it's things like, because when you were talking about banks and things, like, it reminded me of, some lectures at university, because my degree was history of art and architecture, and so Renaissance Italy had like banks that were designed to look like fortresses and give off that impression of strength, because obviously your money is safe here, and that kind of thing. And so I'd sort of like that symbolism is interesting and has always been interesting to me, and so I'd like to see how they've approached it in the game, and sort of, even if it's over designed as all hell, then it's still an abundance or an overabundance of symbolism rather than a lack.
You've been playing something else, Alex?
I was going to talk about another game, but I've been playing Tricky Towers, which I don't think anybody's heard of.
Nope.
I think it's come out fairly recently on PC, but it's a Tetris with physics. And
does Tetris not have physics?
Well, not where the bits fall down and tumble about.
Okay.
So yeah.
Oh, I think didn't this have the world's most dramatic and least instructive trailer involving wrestling?
Possibly.
Or was that something else? Because it sounded really interesting, but it was basically I watched the trailer for whatever this game was, and it was this guy doing ring announcements and them having a punch up, and I was just but it's a Tetris game. What are you talking
Possibly, because it has this amazing multiplayer game on it. So basically, it's up to 4 people, and it's a best. It has an online mode, but it's best played in the room together.
Okay.
4 people on their own kind of things, and there are 3 different modes. So there's survival, which is a mode where you're building your tower with a set number of 66 different blocks, and every time a piece, so when you put things down and you fluff it up in such a way that they don't settle properly, the whole tower might fall down because it's all kind of physicsy.
Okay.
And so it's really important that you build a strong tower, and whenever a piece falls off, you use one of your 3 hearts. And if you lose all your ones, then the surviving player wins. Then there's race, which means you've got to build up your tower to a finish line at the top. And then there's puzzle, and puzzle's the most interesting one, where the starting platform that you go from is this. Some of them are just a couple of pieces just sticking up, but then with these notches below, and you've got to get as many pieces as you can onto that platform, but below there's a line that goes across the screen, so you've got to fit somehow pieces in. You've got to build platforms out. You can kind of lodge them into these little bits, and there are these sort of various different sort of challenges in the puzzle mode, and in that one each player has the same set of blocks in the same order as everybody else, so you're kind of all on the same level, in your bit of the screen. It's really, really, really fun, and it's really every little sound effect is beautiful, and it's just, you can set it on random mode and you play different modes every round and sort of thing, and it's recommended massively. Really, it's really fun, really, really fun.
It sort of sounds and this is obviously the opposite type of thing that you're trying to do, but from what you were saying, it reminded me of Boom Blocks on the Wii.
It feels a lot like Boom Blocks.
Okay.
Yeah. It has that same feel and sort of yeah.
But there's also...
It's obviously this is 2D though, not it's a box 2D game, it's one of those sort of things.
There's a board game called Karuba, which was up for the Spielen des Jahr award this year. I can't speak German, and you can tell that. But it's you have a little board and you have markers that you place to put explorers on a beach, and then little places that they have to get to sort of deeper in the jungle, and then everyone then has the same pieces at their disposal, and it's about who can build a more efficient route and get to the places first and pick up the sort of the higher bounties and things on the way. And that's actually that's kind of really interesting, and it sounds like the puzzle element of what you've got in, is it Tricky Towers? Is that's kind of scratching the same itch. I'm going to go and play that.
Yeah.
Does it have the inspiration and discovery of something like World of Goo? Do you have those moments where you suddenly realise that you can use this shape of block or this combination of shapes in a very different way that you hadn't considered previously?
There's only probably the one revelation where you realise you can kind of lodge them into places and stick them in to build a bit of sort of a wider platform to build from. There are certain because of the physics nature of it, there are certain sort of quite insecure ways of building, especially with those kind of the awkward shaped blocks. Those S-shaped ones, whatever I don't know what the official term is for them.
Okay, yeah.
And they can be a real bugbear as you're trying to because they will often not lodge as beautifully as other things. But it's quite smartly done where, there's if things aren't lining up properly, the way that you're selecting the column to drop the next one in kind of adapts nicely, so it gives you a bit of a chance to make sure things work properly. And then there are certain points at which, when you build over a certain line, you get abilities which might either help you by kind of putting vines down, so that your next couple of blocks will get kind of better rooted into your existing tower, or putting another little platform up that's hanging in the air, which kind of gives you another thing to build from, or offensive ones which might have balloons that kind of stop your opponents kind of from dropping theirs as fast, or really big ones that just mess up all of their attempts to build towers. So there's kind of like a competitive element as well. It's really it's just massively fun.
You just reminded me that there was a game that I played a whole load before I left, but I don't think I talked about it on the podcast. Concrete Jungle.
Oh yeah, no, we talked about it. Yeah.
We did?
Yeah, on the podcast.
Okay,
yeah.
Alright, I don't need to go into that. I also played Inside, which I'm pretty sure I didn't talk about, but I know you guys have, which is just awesome, and I don't need to say anything about it, except that you should definitely play it.
I loved the animations of that. I did like a whole thing on RPS about just look at this, I made a GIF. But yeah.
You've been playing anything else, Tom? John? Tom?
Yeah, Concrete Jungle. Should I talk about it?
I'm going to continue my boring streak of talking about Fallout 4 expansions. And the final one came out today.
It's not wrong because none of the rest of us are playing them, I don't think, so it's really interesting to find out.
It's all new.
The final one, Nuka World. And I've got a couple of hours into it. And it looks like it's going to be another good Bethesda expansion, as opposed to disappointing or weird. Where your survivor travels off to a kind of Disney World analogue. It's based around this in-game brand of Nuka-Cola, and they've done a lot of really great work in visual and audio design. They have these two little mascots that come with the park, and there's a whole theme song which is brilliant, has a couple of little jokes in. But it looks like a whole big new chunk of themed worlds to explore. You've got like the mountain area and the Haunted Mansion district and stuff like that. But the point is that this place has been colonised by raiders, and as you arrive through various circumstances, you are put in charge of them. And I was suspicious at first because Bethesda can't do really shades of grey or morality in their writing at all, and this seemed like it was going to be the comedy teenage evil opportunity. Like, you're kind of broadly a good person throughout most of the game. It's like, now's your chance to just go and shoot a lot of people. But it looks like there's going to be a lot of factions involved. There's kind of some traders and stuff were in this park before the raiders arrived, and they've all been captured. They were wearing like those slave collars which will pop your heads if you leave the district and stuff like that. So it looks like that you can either clean out the raiders or make them fight amongst themselves. There's 3 different factions, or you can just, if you want to go and destroy all the settlements that you've spent so long with the world's worst interface constructing, you can be a raider and go back onto the main map and shoot everything up and steal all their stuff.
So you're a different character, and
no, you're the same character. It's got that Bethesda thing of in Skyrim you're the thief, the master thief, and the head of the Mages Guild and so on. And now you're
Kingpin,
head of Brotherhood of Steel, head of the Minutemen. You've constructed all these settlements around the map, and now you're going to knock them all down again. But yeah, it's the last expansion in the season pass, and they said they're not doing it anymore. So we are done. And I think there were 2 in the end. Far Harbour and this Nuka World seemed like they've been really great, and the other ones have been kind of filler with the construction kit and stuff like that.
It seems like they were probably responding, well, maybe this is giving them too much credit, but probably responding to like the audience who did just get obsessed with building stuff, because there definitely was like, I personally hated the interface for building things in Settlements and didn't engage with it much at all, but some people just went crazy with it and just like would collect every power armor set in the world and then make a kind of hanger for them all and give them all their own unique.
Yeah, I think a while ago I said I didn't think anyone would play the Incredible Contraptions expansion, which is the one about building Rupel machines and so on. But everyone loves it.
Yeah, didn't we decide that there would be 3 people and they would upload their videos to Reddit and everyone would go, ooh, and then move on?
The one previous to this was the Vault construction.
That seemed weird.
It was basically just another construction sim. They give you 3 massive indoor areas. You can do an incredible amount of construction in these massive places. You can build huge underground vaults. And I couldn't see it happening ever. They're just so big. And the idea of building and planning something in this, again, with the world's worst interface, just seemed mad. And they had a little twist on it that all the vaults in the particularly in Fallout 3 and 4, are kind of behavioural experiments. Like Vault Tech is messing with its population, conducting experiments and so on. And the pitch was that you would finally get to do that yourself. And
always wanted to do that.
Their realisation of that was just incredibly depressing. So you go through a number of rounds of special pieces of equipment, and one of those is like a bike that your dwellers can pedal on, and it will generate electricity for it. And the tests involving that are, you get a choice of 3 things. You can administer steroids to them while they're pedaling to make it a little easier. You can use, I think, electroshock and stuff to compel them to keep pedaling at a proper speed. Or you can do something weird like use soothing music or something like that. And that's kind of a boring choice. And it's just made all the more depressing that this experiment is this huge, for me at least, empty vault. Just a massive cavern with
is it
one
so
floor.
Proper, just an empty cavern?
Yeah. There's a bit of decoration around it. There's like tunnels coming in. It's kind of a construction site. But my master devious experiment was a single floor tile with a single bike on, with one person pedaling in this huge underground cathedral, and me just standing there with the clipboard.
Seems to be doing all right.
It wasn't quite the fantasy I was hoping to realise.
In the Nuka world, what do the different parts of the park look like? Are they quite interesting?
Yeah, I've only seen a little bit of it. You get the Half-Life tram ride coming in, but Tom would go even more mad than he did during that, because they route you to place. You're not even allowed to bounce off the inside of the carriage.
I wouldn't be bouncing off the walls because I wouldn't be allowed to, but in my head I would be bouncing off the walls.
But yeah, there's I haven't seen all of them, but I think there's a haunted mansion place which is full of ghouls and so on, and a kind of tropical area and a mountainous area and a kind of Wild West area, stuff like that.
Ice area, lava area.
Probably, yeah. I think it's actually a really good fit for the kind of pop sci-fi that Bethesda have taken it in.
Americana stuff as well.
Also, they can't get sued by Coca-Cola World, which is the most hideous experience I've ever had at a theme park.
Oh wow, you've been.
Oh, hang on, there is one.
Yeah, it's in Atlanta.
Sounds great.
It's just by the aquarium, and I went there with Chris, and it was awful. I hated it every moment of it.
What do you do there?
You listen to people tell you about Coca-Cola in many different ways, and then you can stand outside the vault that apparently has the secret Coca-Cola formula, and people take photos of it. And then there's you sit through a bunch of Coca-Cola advertising, and then you can
Do you have to pay to get in?
Yes. They give you a free Coke though. And then you have to walk through this little museum of Coca-Cola advertising through the years. And I kept getting electric shocks from the door, and I don't know why. And
You weren't sufficiently enjoying Coca-Cola.
I was like,
Enjoy more. Have you not seen the slogan?
there was a 4D like theatre experience which I nearly threw up during.
This is all the Coca-Cola.
I was so unhappy at the time. It was just awful. And like things like spray water in your face and come
That
at
was
you, and
Coca-Cola.
it's 3D and then 4D, and the seats shaking you around, and it's just awful.
What
was
is
the
the fourth
caffeine.
dimension in this case?
Water. Like it just waggles you around and then sprays thing in your face, and it's just really upsetting.
Sounds great.
And then at the end, there's like all of these different like vending machines, and you can sample every single beverage that Coca-Cola owns throughout the world, or
Do they-
sells throughout the world.
Do they explain what the difference is between Diet Coke and Coke Zero?
No, but I think it's to do with the sweeteners that they use. I think.
This is a
that-
contentious subject at Stugan as to which one was worthless shit and which one was amazing.
because I don't like Diet Coke.
Right, have you tried
I
Coke Zero?
think it's grim. Yeah, and
Which
I
one
like
is most-
Coke Zero, and I like Pepsi Max.
Which is the least unhealthy?
Well, it kind of depends, really, doesn't
think-
it? Because there's like, it depends whether you're talking calories or whether you're talking about the negative effects that have been ascribed to particular types of aspartame and other sweeteners, or
Nicely dodged.
I mean, it's probably better if you just have water, to be honest with you. Which, actually, Chris brought me a glass of water at Coca-Cola World, and I burst into tears.
Thank you.
I was
Thank you.
absolutely off my tits on sugar, and then had the worst sugar crash of my life. And then there was like a big, like, Coca-Cola bear mascot thing sitting on the floor, and I just thought it was like a suit that didn't have anyone in it, and then it kind of lumbered to its feet, and I was like kind of sort of entranced but horrified. And then this man was like, "Do you want your photo taken with the bear?" And I was like, I'm alright. And he was just like, "The bear just needs to go for a break and then come back." And I was like, So it was just like, I was kind of horrified / fascinated, and then just horrified, and then sick. So
Sounds like a good DLC.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that might be more horrifying than what's in store for you at Newcastle.
Probably, yeah. I think the worst they've got is big lizards.
Wow.
I don't want to be shocked until I enjoy Coca-Cola.
Maybe behind the vault there's just a load of big lizards in the Coca-Cola world.
So that would be good. Oh, when they're telling you that that's where the vault is, like, you're standing in a cylindrical space while they project, like, bubbles and things on the side as if you're stuck inside a giant glass of Coca-Cola.
That's just...
So I guess that's how
want them
wasps
to
feel when they're drowning.
feel like Coca-Cola.
That should be the slogan for Coca-Cola World. It's like wasps feel when they're drowning.
But yeah, so I did not have a good time at Coca-Cola World.
So we should all go, basically.
Yeah. I was going to say, have it your way, but that was a completely different, like, I don't know. What is
Burger King?
Coca-Cola's thing at the moment?
Subway?
What? Have it your way, that's Burger King, yeah.
Oh, okay.
What's Coca-Cola's slogan at the moment?
Enjoy?
Yeah, maybe. Oh, and it's have a Coke on us or something, isn't it?
Really? Are they giving it free?
That was when they were giving it free, so maybe that was just the slogan for that thing.
It's a short-lived,
Yeah.
a short-sighted slogan.
It's like, hang on, we're bankrupt. We haven't sold any.
Hang on, which one is I'm loving it? That's McDonald's, right?
yeah.
No, I don't know. There must be one, right? Just do
Coke's
it
is-
tonight.
Coke's is we're tolerating it.
Oh my goodness, is Pepsi okay? That's what I used to have to say a lot when people ask for Coke at Pizza Hut.
Oh, really?
Because
I
you're
don't
not
have it.
selling them Coke, and so you have to say, is Pepsi okay? Or like, if they ask for whatever the Coke equivalent of a drink is, you have to check that they're okay. Like Sprite or 7-Up, Tango or Fanta or like whichever way around it is. But yeah.
Should we do questions?
Yeah.
Good. TJ House writes, "Hello. You were in a terrible accident and the doctors were forced to amputate a limb.
Oh No.
They give you a robo-limb with chisels and lasers and whatnot. You didn't ask for this. If you had asked for this, what cyber gubbins would you include in your custom robo-limb? Thanks for the pod, Travis.
USB stick.
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
Would you not want a USB port? Or would you want a
that'd be
USB
useful. You could
stick?
charge your phone
Yeah.
all the time.
Off your
phone.
heartbeat.
My God, you could
I'm not
charge your
running out
phone-
of power ever.
Charge your phone by eating, because it could use your bioenergy, so you could eat
Yeah.
more and also be charging your phone. This is
Oh,
amazing.
that's really good. Yeah.
I mean, Wi-Fi would be great. Just like a Wi-Fi dongle type thing.
Damn Wi-Fi.
You are a Wi-Fi hub.
I am become hub.
My arm is a router.
What if somebody tries to ice you or do the hacking into your arm?
It's so cool, Alex. Tries to ice you or do the hacking.
You've got like your inbuilt body antivirus system,
That's
haven't
true.
you? With
But
your
does
white
that mean
blood
you're
cells?
continually sort of like forced into some sort of bad 2D, 3D kind of
Yeah, you gotta play the
game?
minigame
like,
loads.
oh
I don't
God, I'm being
know.
Get
forced.
really sick of the minigame.
Oh, I think because I talked to Alice about this kind of thing, and I think I decided that I wanted a tease made, like in my
That's
leg.
good.
You know,
That's
just
What is a
good.
tease made?
so it's one of those things that
Think
you
about
can
what it
set.
sounds like.
You can set to just make you a cup of tea for when you wake up. So it's kind
Oh,
of
is it the
like
thing
an
that
alarm
Mrs.
clock slash.
Doyle hates in
Yes.
Father Ted.
Yes, it is.
But my grandma had one, and it was like the best thing in the universe. Don't know what happened to it. It's
bring
like,
out
could I not have inherited that one?
Porcelain cup from your upper thigh. Yeah.
Is the tea actually good from that?
No.
I mean, it's
Because coffee machines I've not had much luck with.
well, I think as well, like it might depend on how quickly, you know, how apt you are to get out of bed. If you keep snoozing it, it's going to stew.
Yes, obviously. I just realised an AeroPress is what I want in my robot. So I can brew coffee and like plunge it down when it's ready.
Does that
Like,
mean you're rooted to the,
so-
to the kitchen side? Oh, I can't go anywhere because my AeroPress hand is still in the
so
coffee.
one hand is like the cylinder that the coffee brews in, and the other hand is the plunger, and so I like punch it. Well, like it retracts like Adam's fist chisels. Like it shoots out my wrist, and then
You could also have like a juicer as another attachment, you know, and a grater. That would be good. So,
yeah, maybe a peeler so you can peel oranges for old fashions. That's a common task I have to solve.
yeah.
It annoys me a lot.
A
I don't use it at all,
zester.
but- Yeah, zester.
I would ask for a lot of these things.
Yeah. Maybe like some sort of entertaining tool or toy, you know, like the ones that you get in crackers, those metal wire puzzles, just so that like somebody can like amuse themselves with
An
your
executive
arm
toy.
while you are, yeah.
Knocking balls underneath your
Oh, a
forearm.
mutant cradle on your arm.
Gotta hold it really level for it to work.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I don't know.
We should not be asked for this.
No, well,
I don't know.
I think we're the best people to
Anyway, I get
ask.
to choose what I replace my limbs with, thanks, Tom.
Yeah. I think I would probably go old school. I'd go for a peg leg. You
Yeah.
know?
Go for
That's-
artisanal wood.
Why not?
That's the least ambitious thing you could ask for prosthetic limbs. I would like it to be just a peg. No features.
I don't think many people have peg legs nowadays, so it would be quite the thing. I mean, you know, if I had to have something.
Yeah, the stipulation of the question is that you have lost a limb, so it's...
Yeah. So it's up to me. I get to choose.
It's fair. Peter Crossland writes, have your taste in games changed massively as you've got older? Personally, I found I'm becoming increasingly put off by graphic violence in video games. I've never been very into violent games. I never played the Sniper Elite games specifically because of the X-ray bullet cam. But recently I found myself put off by violence and death even in fairly tame games like Half-Life 2. And he goes on to say that it was alright with it at the time, but now the muffled and twisted cries from the zombies are so unpleasant and unenjoyable that I didn't want to continue any further. I guess all I'll be able to replay from now on are games like Proteus and The Witness, which I'm fine with, as I tend to use games as escapism, and I'd rather escape into something pleasant than into something glorifying death and misery. Have you had similar experiences with quite abrupt pivots in your game tastes? Thanks, Peter. I've definitely had that shift. I haven't gone back to Half-Life 2 lately, but anything I think I used to be into like stuff like Soldier of Fortune. I remember finding like Postal 2 quite funny, and now stuff that either like glorifies or makes light of violence or makes fun of violence is a lot less appealing to me. But I still like stuff like Deus Ex, where it's violence is like optional and it's there, and the setting is serious. And I guess it's arguable like how much it glories in violence, but like violence is depicted in a way that's like impactful, but it's not like funny or I don't know. Like, I guess the fist chisel cutscenes in Deus Ex are a little bit like, you could call them glorifying it, but I also don't really do those because I do the non-lethal takedowns instead. And if I choose to kill someone, it feels kind of right that it shows it to me in a really graphic way, and it kind of like, that's one of the reasons I don't do it, is because it shows it to me in a really graphic way, and I'm like, oh god. And like, obviously when I was first playing the game, I tried all of them because I wanted to see all the cool takedown moves, and I laughed at some of them because they're just like, there's a certain like black comedy to them. Like, there's one where you stack people up so you can skewer them all at once for efficiency's sake. And there's like, I think there's like experimenting mode where like, what happens if I do this? And in that mode, I'm happy to indulge in like violence for its own sake, because I'm not connecting with the game. And then when I go back to playing it properly, I won't do that, because I sort of like, I'm slipping into that person's perspective, and in their world, these people are real, and I don't actually feel that, but I avoid doing things that are totally gross in that fiction while I'm believing in the fiction.
I don't think my tastes have changed hugely, but I've started, like, I think most people who are heavily invested in any kind of form of media, like music or films or food or anything like that, started enjoying weird, surrealist, very specific stuff. Like, I really enjoy the Catamites things, and like a year or two ago I would have bounced right off them, and even now I'm not entirely sure if I enjoy the experience of playing through. His latest one is a kind of surreal Zelda adventure, and like all of his art, it just kind of assaults your eyeballs, and the writing's very strange but often lyrical. I don't really understand the game design, but it's just a really interesting experience. And I assume like the equivalent would be weird art house movies or something. I think most people probably get that way if they like play games or watch films for 15, 20 years or whatever.
I found that I'm a lot less able to play games that aren't easy to get into. So in the past I would have, if Dwarf Fortress was around when I started playing games, or at least, you know, my kind of late teens or something, I probably would have really gotten into it and at least kind of tried with it, and I can't do that anymore. I don't think that I have the patience for things that are that demanding. Most games that are really demanding, Dota and that kind of thing, I mean, I don't have the sign-ups for it anymore anyway, but anything that requires a lot of time, which is not to say that I don't sink a lot of time into games, I just need them. I need to be experiencing a sense of sort of fun and accomplishment early before I kind of get dispirited, which I'm kind of disappointed in myself about, but I think that's just a function of growing old.
I think it's that's something that I've encountered, but it's more because of I don't want to make this a mortality thing, because that feels more pretentious than it's worth, but it's that thing of, you know, you do become aware that time is such a finite resource, and that, you know, 50 hours on a thing that you're not particularly enjoying just so that you can join a conversation is just not the best use of your time. And also sort of developing other interests, because things like staying in your room all the time weren't actually the healthiest thing that you could have been doing. So, you know, like, I said it flippantly earlier, but I mean, instead of playing more of Abduction or more of No Man's Sky or starting Deus Ex or something, I went for a 5-hour walk on Monday. And so it's that thing of like, I've definitely started prioritising everything a bit differently over time, and so games have just been part of that. And it doesn't mean that they're less important, it's just that the ones that are middling, I am so much less inclined to give more than the amount of time it takes to assess that, I guess. And the other thing is I have found that I don't know whether I was ever particularly interested in violent games, but I've become less able to stomach it or more comfortable with admitting that I don't like it. I'm honestly not sure which of the two it is, but sort of going back to some of the older but not oldest Call of Duty games, where you're sort of shooting up, an entire room full of people, like that's just not my idea of fun anymore. Whereas before it was like, oh, it's just part of Call of Duty, it's
That's
just
what
part
games
of
are, sort of thing.
Yeah, part of a thing, I guess.
Beep Beep writes, best cats in a video game?
I think Finest Cat is from a video game that's not out yet, based around you as a cat exploring, is it Kowloon Walled City or Kowloon Walled City, and it's just gorgeous. And they have this amazing slinky animation for the cat, which is really what you need to focus on if you're making a cat-based game. But I'm really excited to see how that turns out, because that kind of neon cyberpunk thing, but just with like the twist of you being a cat wandering through it. I think you're like kind of like a data courier, I think, which is a concept I can really get on board with.
There's a talking cat in Witcher, one of the Witcher Witcher 3 expansions. Which one? Not the most recent one before that. It's quite a good cat.
I think the only cat that sticks in my memory video games wise is the one from Costume Quest, and that's just because it has like a, the detail of its butthole.
I don't think I remember Cat. Is it a major character?
No, I think I just remembered it because I remembered thinking, wow, they went to the trouble of giving it an actual, like pink butthole that it can show you as it walks away. I'm going to look really weird if it turns out that I'm misremembering that game.
I see.
But that's such a cat thing to do. Like, that's a cat thing.
I'm going to vote for the Khajiit that you can date in Morrowind. You can't really date her, but you can move in with her for some reason. Stephen Rancott writes, I listen to the podcasts during arthritis treatments. What is the best take your mind off things game? I feel like now I would probably use Concrete Jungle because it's so massively complicated. It's got so much to it that you can just consumes all of your brain.
I'm going to go opposite and say Diablo 3 because you can just go off in your own mind while you're playing it, smashing stuff up and kind of it's just the most relaxing game I know.
I think for me it's stuff like either like those addicting puzzle games or, stuff like Tetris or like Animal Crossing where I'll obsess and
the ones where you're not
for hours and
actively
hours
thinking,
like where I can kind of switch off most of the bits of my brain except the bits that are trying to connect some dots or fish for a new thing or all of that kind of stuff, I would say. And the other thing is I'm horribly I will sink an awful amount of time into clicker games just because they're there and I like watching the next thing tick around as well and working out how to exploit those, so they're quite a good distractor, I guess.
I play Spelunky quite a lot as a TV game. It's something I watch something I play when I'm watching telly or film or listening to a podcast or something, which is just a really interesting lifespan from something I had to concentrate incredibly hard on and get massively frustrated with. And it's just the familiarity I have with it now has just meant it's almost something that I can play automatically. And the only time something interesting happens in it is when I die in a way that I'd never seen before, which is becoming slightly rarer and rarer and rarer.
Monkey Hammer writes a question which baffled us all. So I'm just going to read it as written. Why has Telltale's Hitman succeeded in keeping people talking past episode 1, while other episodic games seem to fade after episode 2? We cannot tell whether they think that the new episodic Hitman is by Telltale, or whether they meant Telltale's Batman, and it's just like an autocorrect thing.
Are people talking about Batman?
So that's the thing that like made me think maybe they actually think Hitman is by Telltale, because everyone is talking about the new Hitman game. I think that's been a successful example of episodic, like keeping the conversation alive. Whereas the Batman one, I haven't really heard a lot of chatter about it.
No.
So either way, we can't answer your question.
But it might be another one to submit next week with some clarifications.
Yeah, Telltale's Hitman is just a hilarious concept. Like, if it's a joke, this is a great joke. Just the idea that
847 will remember that.
he only has like 2 lines or something. Zed Fang writes, challenge. Each of you try and name one game you've enjoyed that you're sure no other panelist has played. We talked about this a little bit before recording, and I found out that mine has been played by one other panelist, but since the question was to try and...
He's got it on a technicality.
I tried, damn it. Mine was Red Amazon by Tom van der Bogart, who did Burn Band, which we've talked about a fair bit here. I think I also talked about Red Amazon at the time, but I wanted to give it another shout out just because it was when you asked me about like an obscure game that I enjoyed. That was it. Unfortunately, it turns out Alex has played it. But it's a first-person game where you are like in a cabin in the woods, which I can relate to now. And it's just incredibly tense. It's much more like a kind of tense movie scene than a game, in that there's, I think there's only one thing in it that is a threat to you, but the arrival of that thing and the way it's presented, it was just like had me completely on the edge of my seat, and I was so like terrified of it.
I'm picking Vanges. No reaction. Excellent. It was a really incredibly weird top-down game where you played a car roving across a landscape which looked like it was made out of plasticine by a psychopath. And it was a little bit elite. You were running missions between various enclaves and
They got Mad Max style.
yeah, like trading and so on, but those enclaves were weird burrows in the ground infested by giant maggots who would give you their spawn to try and get to the other hive before the seasons changed, stuff like that.
When did it come out?
90s, I think.
Wow.
It's incredibly interesting psychedelic world they built, and then the same company went on to build Perimeter, I think, which is kind of an RTS about shape-shifting units and stuff, and it was never like entirely certain if they used the same world, but yeah, I love that game. I still like the weird words like Vanges and Beebs and Gluek and yeah, just great. It was one of those games a little like Stalker that I think from the Russian bloc devs put in a lot of interesting new words and stuff like that.
Have any of you guys played Cradle?
Yes.
Damn it! Because that's like, usually I quite like talking about that because I feel like people didn't appreciate it enough.
What is it?
It might still count because I didn't really understand what was happening at all.
So it's a kind of like post-apocalyptic feeling, kind of transhumanist-ish thing that is also kind of a point-and-click adventure with sort of block-solving puzzles, and it's set in a yurt on the
yes, I remember that.
step.
I haven't played it,
Because it's the only game I know to feature yurts.
but as soon as you say yurt,
Yurt.
you'll know either.
But yeah, so that I really loved that when I played it earlier this year, and it's kind of just the right amount of weird and just the right amount of, you know, like giving you a chance to read through things and have things not quite make
It's
sense.
quite a lot of text,
and,
I think, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. Like and it was, it's one of those things where I found it really rewarding, like digging around in all of the different like letters and things that you could find, and all of that kind of stuff. And there is a sort of an element of pixel hunting-y kind of annoyance to some of the puzzles, but overall I really liked it and its sort of the weirdness and the ambition that it had. But if we're looking for stuff that like no one else has played, damn it, I don't know. Have any of you played
Dota?
Yeah.
John's definitely played Dota.
Fuck. Hex Cells.
I have played that, I'm afraid.
Got such popular.
Has anyone played the original Quarantine?
No.
Taxi driving game? It's like a taxi driving game in a dystopian society, and so like you drive to pick up fares, but you can also like shoot your Uzi out the window, and there are always gangs and stuff. And also one of your keys is to like flip the bird out of your window and just say up yours. But we had a big debate in my household about whether they were saying up yours or Lovejoy. And this is in the 90s, so like the sound quality was low enough that you could easily hear it either way. But yeah, it was just really like grimy, dirty, nasty game. And at the time I'd never seen a game like that before, so it really stuck with me.
Oh.
Mine was early 90s, and I don't even know where it came from. It's called Corvette. We had it on our 286 Tandy PC and CGA, so it was kind of cyan and magenta, black and white. And it was you driving a Corvette in an open San Francisco. So you'd kind of have these point-to-point races inside the city, and you can go anywhere, and there was traffic to contend with. It ran like probably about 10 frames a second because it's 3D, and I played it a lot despite that. But it was one of those games I don't know how we got it. I don't know anyone who's ever played it. Maybe it came with the computer. It was on a disc, yeah.
Like as in a demo disc?
No, it was the full game.
Magazine disc?
No, I didn't have any magazines at that point. It was like it just not PC games anyway. It probably came with the computer, but then I don't know. It's weird. Like there was a time when maybe it's like the age I was, like just certain things, games in my life they just existed, and I don't know where they came from, whether I bought them or whether they were bought for me.
I had that with Rapture Call of the Wild, which I don't know whether have any of you played that?
No.
So it was
Hooray.
like yes.
Found
it was a PC game from the early 90s, I think, and it was one of those like bottom to top scrolling kind of shooter. Like you were in a plane and you were like taking out enemies who were coming the other way, and you could also shoot at things.
I played that. Yeah, it was. It
was really good.
It was really good.
But I think we only had
the shareware.
portion of it.
We had
the shareware.
we had the shareware as well. Sorry.
Oh, I give up.
You don't have to find one.
Oh,
But I did like that time. Like I don't know how I got Doom, for instance, because we didn't have any internet. I must have been handed a disc that went around school.
Yeah.
Like the only way it could have come to me.
Magazines were pretty important back then too.
Yeah, I didn't read it. It wasn't from a magazine.
I remember Major Striker demo on the cover of PC Zone issue 1. Played that to death.
Oh my god.
That was in the days of
Mario.
shareware too.
No,
Okay.
I played Mario.
Right, yeah, I'll go with that then. Super Mario Galaxy.
Forrest Alvarez writes, does the crew think that the market can continue to support games like Bound and Abzu? Prices keep going up for these. What do we think games like Bound and Abzu are?
I assume they mean just because of those two that have been picked, there's an emphasis on the aesthetic experience as well as the actual interactions. But I'm gonna just point out that they're both like 15 quid, and I really don't think that that's I think I don't quite understand the idea of the market supporting that, because to me that feels like an incredibly reasonable price point for
Seems like
a game.
Abzu's done well, maybe? Just from the chatter, I haven't seen any sales figures, but like people seem really excited about it. It's getting good reviews.
I see a lot of the stuff that is positive, but I think that's possibly because I follow some of the devs on Twitter, and so obviously like their very particular with what they retweet. I mean, I wasn't mad keen on it, simply because I thought that the other games that those people have been involved with did everything that it does better. But
Yeah.
I mean, the art style was lovely, and I've only really seen the trailer for Bound, but again, that looked amazing. Like the actual sort of the sense of movement was glorious, and I think that those games do actually really benefit from the sort of higher production values.
Definitely.
And so I think that that's an entirely reasonable price point to put that at, and I think that, you know, people are in a different mindset when they approach those games. I think, not to sort of harp on about it, but I think that part of No Man's Sky's problem is because it's got a AAA price point, but it's more in the vein of those games in some ways, and so making it like 20 quid instead of 40 would possibly have changed the mindset with which people approached it. But that's just speculation on my part, but I think it would have changed the experience for me anyway.
Yeah.
Adam Beardwood writes, Deus Ex Mankind Divided has amazing art direction. Should we clone Jonathan Jacques Belletet so every dead can have one of him, or would that be playing God?
I'm actually going to try and say something serious.
Yeah?
But I hope he's not, because I really like how distinctive it is in that game. He has a style.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a professional creative, so presumably, you know, I'm sure he can do other things, you know.
Has
but
he worked on other games of note?
presumably, I don't know what they would
So it
do.
would be interesting to sort of see whether
Yeah.
there have been sort of striking differences in
Yeah.
previous.
Although, like, Time would say that, like, his career as a art director on that kind of budget game, you know, that kind of starter game, presumably there can't be many others in his career, just because of time and age and things. But I would love for there to be more kind of distinctive art directors who are given the reins to be able to do that kind of thing.
I think that's
for
the
sure.
key point. We've had art directors for years, and without them, games would just look like horrible messes, because they're basically there to corral 20 different artists who all have their own unique style into doing something cohesive. And I think what happened with Deus Ex was that his particular style, like, his blog is full of triangles anyway,
Yeah.
but finally, like, they obviously matched up with what they wanted Deus Ex to be, and he was given a lot of leeway to really stamp his vision on that. And I think it's had a very good response in general, so we might see more of it.
I was thinking when you guys were talking about all the crazy stuff Mankind Divided has done, it felt like Human Revolution was a bit of an experiment. They really went out on a limb, like, can we do some weird stuff? Can we have some ruffles and some blocks of washing machines? And then the market basically said, yeah, that's fine, that's cool. And so they're like, okay, well, now we're going all out. Now we're going to have a bank full of trees.
Yeah.
I think maybe Tumblr was a really good
Yeah.
thing for that now exists and sort of feeds that particular
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
mood board sensibility almost for
Yeah.
people just looking for reference points or wanting to talk about them or follow what someone is thinking at any given moment aesthetically. That sounded weird.
This next person's name is both a pun and partially in French. And having recently gained some French friends at Stugan, I'm now incredibly self-conscious about my French pronunciation. Because I thought it was pretty good until I met some French people and then they just laughed at me.
Oh, no.
So, how to do the joke justice? Because it's like a kind of a text thing and you have to read something two different ways. Comic sans frontières.
Oh, nice.
Get it? Yes, okay. Well, it works for English people anyway. Which is a Doctors Without Borders joke. What's your favourite home base in a game world?
Home base. Like
The shop.
Not the DIY store. Like, place you return to after.
okay. Okay, fine. Sorry. Yeah, sure.
The first one that sprung to mind was Crusader No Remorse, where you have like a rebel base, so like it's kind of just I don't know, like a building that you've kind of set up a makeshift camp in, and I think I remember it because at some point it gets attacked, and then you go back there and it's like a combat space now, and you have to fight through it, and then everything's ruined. And that trick obviously has been pulled by a million video games, but that might have been the first one I saw it in, and so it kind of stuck with me. I really like Balmorra in Morrowind, which is not the first city, not the city you start in, but it's like your first job in Morrowind. It's like you go from this tiny fishing village to the proper city and talk to this contact. And like it's a fairly small town in the like grand scheme of things, but when you arrive there, it kind of feels like that's when the game starts, and you've got this big place to explore with loads of quests in it, and it's really pretty.
The XCOM ones have always been pretty good, especially the earlier ones where you would play defense missions if the aliens ever found you in the bases that you constructed, and it was oddly rewarding for me at least, to leave out UFO defences in my base construction because I wanted them to come in and run through my death trap mazes.
Yeah, I can't think of any, because the ones that have stuck with me are the ones where I've personalised them to the point where it doesn't feel like it was the thing that the game developers created that was iconic. It was that I was allowed to do enough to it that I made it weird in some memorable way, or like, you know, like it's not a PC game, but in Animal Crossing, my current house, I had completely forgotten what I'd done with it, and I went back when I finally found the charger for my 3DS and found that in the roof it's just those weird singing like fire hydrant looking things. Like there's just every floor tile is covered with them. And then like downstairs there's just a secret lair that I've put weird nonsense in, and then in the main floor there's like a mermaid palace kind of vibe going on. So I don't know, like in the roof there's just the screaming horror of the gargoyles, and then like in the that
might have to be my Subnautica base now that I remember it. Which, it's the thing where you build it yourself and it's your own.
Yeah.
But it taps into so many dorky childhood fantasies of being underwater and submarines and stuff like that. And I have this weird obsession with moon pools, which are the things where an underwater room has an opening to the sea, so you can come up from the sea into the air. And when you're doing that in a mini submarine, that's even cooler.
Yeah, I really like my one of those, but I really love that because I made a bunch of those outdoor underwater seabed gardening box things and laid them out and just made a proper like garden that I can see from out of my window, and that was really nice. And I built it right next to the volcanic vent thing, the thermal vent. So there's like a little viewing platform that extends over the vent, and you can kind of see the lava and the everything like spewing past.
I should play that.
It doesn't really compare, but now that you mention like ones that you build yourselves, in Minecraft, like one of the earliest worlds I played in, I just found this cove. So like underneath a cliff, the rock kind of went in a little bit, and then there was just a little kind of a beach of sand just next to the rock, just wide enough for you to walk down. And so I made that the entrance to my base, and then I built into there. Cool. Inside I didn't make anything particularly interesting or impressive, but that entrance was always so like exciting to me, just this like little bit of water that's under a cliff.
I made a Minecraft house that was quite elaborate, but then I discovered that you can make those the musical note
Low blocks.
Yeah, the floor blocks that you can walk over, and it plays a note from a particular scale. And so I made it so that, because I wanted to build like a doorbell for my front door, but obviously you can't do that in the game. So what I had to do was I had to basically chisel out a whole bunch of the blocks in the lead up to the doorway. So you had to be funneled through this weird chasm to get to the doorway, and then they had like these pressure plates all along the way that would then play the village peoples in the navy as you walked up to the front door. Was really proud of that.
Mine was Monteriggioni in Assassin's Creed 2, that little Tuscan town that you kind of slowly kind of upgrade over the game. I just love sort of that bit of that place. It's nice.
But again, it's something that you've stamped your...
to an extent, yeah, because you kind of slowly kind of upgrade it.
But sort of less malleable than some of the others.
Definitely.
Yeah.
These were good questions this week. The ones we understood. If you want to send us questions, you can do so at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also tweet them at us. We're at Crate and Crowbar on Twitter. You can post stuff on our forum, which is crateandcrowbar.com/forum. And also at crateandcrowbar.com, you'll find the details for our Discord room, which is where a lot of people hang out and talk and organise to play games and stuff. And you can follow us individually. I am at Pentadact, PENTADACT. Alex?
I am at Rotational, so ROTATIONAL.
Just the way you spell rotational.
I'm at Philippa War, which is at PHILIPPAWARR.
And John?
JOHN_ARR.
Thanks for listening, everybody!